Hello, my friends. Welcome. My name is Joe. This is the Joe Martino Show. And today we're going to talk about Inside Out 2. And I think that there is a glaring gap in the movie. There's a problem with the messaging of the movie that we have to talk about, especially if you're taking your kids and you're hoping that it's going to teach them about emotions. Because it's going to teach them something that I think is incomplete and could potentially be a problem for how they learn to regulate their emotions, and could actually delay their ability to regulate their emotions as an adult. Let's kick it off. This is The Joe Martino Show.
You're listening to The Joe Martino Show, a podcast dealing with all things emotional, relational, and human nature. Joe is a licensed counselor in the state of Michigan, specializing in relationship therapy. He is also the author of the book, The Emotionally Secure Couple. All advice offered in this episode is offered for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome. I hope that your day is going well, wherever your day is, whatever you are doing. I hope that you are joined today. Today I want to talk to you about Inside Out, the franchise. And I want you to just stay with me, because when I first bring this up to people, sometimes they look at me like I'm a little crazy. The message that I'm going to give you today, I have a therapist who sat in on a session with me. Sometimes we do that so that we can kind of sharpen our tools, so to speak. And she sat in and she was like, wait, you didn't like that movie? And that isn't what I'm saying. I want to be clear on that. But I do think that both movies, Inside Out and Inside Out 2, both have an incomplete message. So if you don't know the story, which probably you don't, basically 2 weeks ago now or 3 weeks ago now, I don't remember, my son was like, hey, can we go see Inside Out 2? I was like, I don't know. Let me look at my schedule, see if we can make it work. Yeah, I can do it this day. I couldn't do it that day. We went a different day. So it ended up some Thursday afternoon, we ended up going out to dinner. We kind of had a dad-son day of it. It was a good time. And we went to see Inside Out 2. And the whole time that I'm there, I'm kind of like, I don't know what I think of this. And I had seen Inside Out 1 in the theaters. I know everybody was all excited because, hey, we're finally talking about emotions in movies. Woohoo. And that's good. Hey, we need to talk about emotions. We want emotions to be part of our societal conversations. But there's a problem, and I'm sitting there and I don't know what it is, and I'm completely uncomfortable with it. And then I realize as I'm going on throughout the day, when we leave the movie theater, we go get food, we had a fun time. Later that night it hits me, the main character, Riley, her emotions control her. And that isn't how it works. And that's what makes the movie problematic for me. We have this crazy messaging in society that our emotions control us. And it's clear in the movie. If you haven't seen it, I have a warning. Spoilers are coming. In the movie, especially Inside Out 2, Riley hits teenage years, puberty hits, and her emotions run her. In fact, inside her brain, I guess, or inside her core, there is this control panel, this control desk, where the emotions sit and they literally control her. If anxiety hits it and it gets a hold of her control panel, she is running around with an anxiety attack, just rah. And that isn't how it works. And I'm sitting there thinking, where's cognition? Where is cognition? In our society, we have sold out to this idea that whatever you feel, it controls you. If you have anxiety, it runs you. If you have fear, it runs you. If you have sadness, it runs you. If you have awkwardness, well, that isn't an emotion, that's an action, but it runs you. And it's just not true. And while it's great that the movie starts to talk about emotions, I don't want it to go by without us telling our kids, hey, you can experience those emotions and still act appropriately. Because in the movie, the only time Riley acts appropriately, the only time it all works for her is when her emotions negotiate it out. When her feelings negotiate it out and anxiety pushes joy all the way to the back of the brain and they got to run out. And it's actually a pretty great picture that they start with, right? Because in the beginning of the movie, Joy is sending all of Riley's negative experiences or bad thoughts to the back of the brain. And we talk about that. There's a picture where anxiety tries to bottle up Joy, tries to bottle up the emotions she has. And that's fantastic imagery. That's fantastic pictures of what we teach people to do. But the problem is we teach people to do that because we teach them that somehow emotions control us, that we are slaves to our emotions. And we're not. We are not slaves to our emotions. Say it with me and say it louder for the people in the back. We are not slaves to our emotions. You are not a slave to your anxiety. If you have anxiety, it does not have to control you. If you have fear, it does not have to control you. And just because you hit puberty, it doesn't mean that they get to run the show. Now, are they bigger? Do our emotions get bigger and more pronounced? And do we feel them more? Absolutely. But if our messaging is your emotions have to negotiate it out amongst themselves, we've got a real problem. And I know that this sounds insane, Joe, you're picking on a kid's movie. Yeah, because kids are going to see that and think it's real. Think that's how it works. Adults are going to see that and think it's real, and that's how it works. And it isn't. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We don't have a place for sadness in society anymore. We go straight from happy, or in the movie, joy, to depression. Gone. No. You were just sad for a few days. You were just sad for a minute. We have very little place in society for anxiety is okay. In fact, quite regularly, anxiety is a good thing. You need a little bit of anxiety sometimes. It helps us. It helps our body prepare for action. It helps our brain prepare for the test. It helps us prepare for what's coming. And when we just, anxiety runs the show. No. Pump the brakes. Pump the brakes. We can control our own emotions. Now, we don't necessarily control the feeling of it. And I understand it's a movie. It probably would have been hard to figure out how to portray this. I get that. But when we teach people that they can't control their emotions, that their emotions have to be the things that negotiate how they act, we're robbing people of their self-agency. We're robbing them of the very real power that every person has. And I was talking to somebody about it, and they asked me, they were like, so wait, are you saying we shouldn't go to the movie? Absolutely not. If you want to take your kids to the movie, if you want your kids to see the movie, have fun. I personally don't like going to the movie theater as much as I used to. I'd rather watch it at home, but that's up to you. But I am saying if you watch it with your kids, make sure that you are having a conversation with them about what's going on. Make sure that you're filling in the gaps for them. Make sure that you're having a conversation like, hey, how do you feel about that? That emotions ran her. Do you ever feel that way? Because sometimes we do feel that way. We do feel like our emotions run us. But I'm telling you, good therapy, a lot of good therapy is just helping people realize you have power over your emotions. And good parenting is helping our kids realize that. Certainly by exercising our power over our own emotions, but also by helping our kids realize and teaching them how they can exercise their own power over their emotions. If your daughter has anxiety, it does not have to control her. She does not have to act selfishly. In fact, the anxiety might push her that way. I often say to my kids, I often say to my clients, sometimes I even say to myself, hey, you know what? There are things that your brain tells you that aren't true. And if the movie had done that, I'd be here to give it 5 stars. But it didn't do that. What it did is it said her emotions run her. Her emotions, her anxiety controls her joy, and it pushes it to the back. And joy had to fight its way back to the front with the other emotions. No. You have to exercise your own cognition, Riley. You have to exercise the power of your brain. You have to exercise the power of your ability to reason. You should feel those emotions. You should feel that anxiety. You should allow it to wash over you. You should go ahead. And I even tell clients sometimes, you know what? Sometimes we just have to consider the reality that we just have to embrace what we're feeling. We just have to embrace what we're feeling. And it's okay. But once you embrace it, once you feel it, once you know what's going on, you have to decide, how do I want to act? And this message is subliminally there in the movie. It's kind of undertoned, it's understated, but I don't want it to be understated for my kids. I want to remind them, your emotions don't run you, you run your emotions. And what I often hear from people is, yeah, but that's how I feel, which is, yeah, that's great, that's true. That's how you feel. But is that how you want to act? Do you have to act that way? So in the movie, Riley makes some bad decisions. And yes, there's tension here. I get it. It's a movie. We can chalk those bad decisions up to her feelings, how she was feeling. But when we let the message be, well, this is how she felt, so that's what she did, we lose out on the ability to actually experience negative emotions and still behave in a manner that is true to who we want to be. And that's my concern with the movie, because I'll tell you what, I hear that message on repeat. When I was in my internships, I heard this message from guys who used to beat their wives or would beat someone. They'd commit domestic violence, and they're sitting in a court-mandated group therapy session, and they're like, well, of course I hit her. She disrespected me. And the therapist would be like, well, how did you feel when she disrespected you? And they'd be like, well, I felt disrespected, and so I felt like, I had to protect my reputation, Like, dude, I don't care how you felt. You don't get to hit somebody. And in the movie, I mean, if your emotions are running you, if your emotions are what is driving your behaviors, how is that inaccurate then? How is what they're saying inaccurate? Well, Joe, but they're just saying in the movie that's for the kid. No, actually, they showed that for the parents too. And again, I would just keep saying that is not how it works. So let's talk about how it does work. If I was the creative geniuses running Inside Out or creating Inside Out, and I'm not a creative genius, so I want to be clear, this is not a criticize of them. I love that we're having the conversation. We just need to have the complete conversation. How then do we talk about this? How does it work? And I think one of the things that we have to talk about is the reality that you can feel anything and still have behaviors that are appropriate. But there has to be something beyond the control panel of our brain that our emotions run. So I love the imagery. If we want to use that imagery, we could say to our kids, hey, have you ever felt like something was controlling you? Have you ever felt like you were sitting in your house and somebody sat down at the control panel of your brain and controlled you? Have you ever felt that, what they just showed on the show or on the movie? Well, you know what? So the truth is that only happens if you allow your emotions to run that control panel. Otherwise, you get to make the choice. Otherwise, you are actually created with the power to navigate your emotions. I would love some sort of section of that movie where it's Riley moving her emotions around inside the control panel. It's Riley moving her emotions front brain, back of brain, side of brain, whatever. You don't have to be controlled by your emotions, and you control them. So how do we do that? Well, we make sure that our behaviors match. I've talked about this numerous times. Just recently, my son is talking to my wife and I, and he wants to do something, and my wife says no. And he says, I'm really frustrated with you because, and he goes on to explain what's happening and how he feels, right? So we teach our children from a very young age. Quite honestly, before they can understand it, we teach them something happens and you feel something about it. And when you talk about it, I want you to use that type of connection. And so he says, I'm really frustrated with you right now because, and he tells her what's going on and his perception of it. And I said to him, buddy, I'm really proud of you that you were able to express how you're feeling. Now I need you to get a shower. So he goes and gets his shower. He comes back into our room and he tries one more time to get what he wants. Mom, can I fill in the blank? Erica says, no, you can't. And then he starts this, All right, he sounds like a dying tortoise. I've never heard a tortoise die. I would never want to hear a tortoise die. But, maybe a porpoise. It's just this awful, awful sound. And I'm like, hey, buddy, I want you to know that I respect and I appreciate that you were able to tell us that you're frustrated. I really respect that, and I really appreciate it. I think that's amazing. And you don't get to do whatever this is right here, this, that's got to stop. You need to go to bed, and that has to stop. What I'm doing is I'm both validating his emotion and I'm telling him that certain behaviors are not okay simply because he's feeling these negative emotions. That isn't how life works. And now I'm anticipating somebody's going to have seen the movie. They're going to be like, well, Joe, there was consequences for Riley. I agree. But no one actually taught her what to do with her emotions. Like in the movie, her emotions sorted out. And we have to teach our children what to do with their emotions. We have to teach them how to sort their own emotions. We have to teach them how they can move forward and still feel whatever it is they're feeling. I don't want him to deny his frustration. I don't want him to deny his sadness. I don't want him to pretend. But I also want him to control himself and act in a way that is acceptable. I want him to have behavior that is good. He can be mad. He can be seething mad. He can be really mad. And he can tell me, I'm mad at you. He didn't. But he could tell me, Dad, I'm really mad at you. Awesome. I'm glad you can tell me that. And I expect you to behave a certain way even when you're mad. Period. Period. No comments, no questions. This is just how it is, because that's the way it is for me too, right? And someday he's going to be my age. Someday he's going to be an adult. And adults don't just wake up and have the ability to regulate their emotions. Don't believe me? Look around you. We can't regulate our emotions as a society anymore. I'm overstating it a little bit. Because we stopped teaching kids how to regulate their emotions under the false pretense of accepting them. Or under maybe a good pretense of accepting them. Right? Good intentions and all that maybe. But good soul people, have the feelings and behave appropriately. Okay, so I appreciate you coming to my TED Talk today. Clearly, I'm kidding. But it does bother me. It bothers me if you've listened this far. Because we are not slaves to our emotions. We can feel them. We should feel them. We can recognize them. We should recognize them. And we still have to act in a way that is appropriate. We still have to behave in a way that is appropriate. We still have to control our behaviors. I've talked about it before. Emotional regulation drives me crazy, but we do sort our behaviors, or we do sort our emotions by sorting our behaviors. That's really important. All right, tell me what you think. Let me know. Shoot me an email. Send me a text. Well, don't send me a text. You could send me a text if you have the number, because if you have the number, I probably gave it to you. Either way, thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please share with a friend. And hey, give us that rating in your podcast store. Until next time, change possible.